I really like the design of the D-Rex. It's this mutated, cumbersome, heavy beast, a Tyrannosaurus Rex saddled with the flesh of other poorly grafted dinosaurs, genes expressed that never should have been, experimented on by a morally bankrupt organisation. But does any of that come through in Jurassic World Rebirth? In this video, I'm going to give my views on how the D-Rex is mishandled by the film, and I think maybe more importantly, offer some small suggestions that would have improved both the creature and the movie as a result. There will be spoilers for the D-Rex's appearance in Rebirth here, so if you still haven't seen the film and you still want to avoid spoilers, this is your cue to, well, go away, basically. The other day, I did a video on how Rebirth messed up with its attempts to retcon the existing canon. And I mentioned at the time that that was one of my two major problems with a film that I otherwise enjoyed. The other problem? Well, it's the mutants. Now, I was excited for the D-Rex's appearance in Jurassic World Rebirth. Do we really need mutant hybrid dinosaurs? No, not really. And I do think the D-Rex's scenes could have largely been replaced with basically any other large theropod with very little change to the final film. But that's not because the idea itself is flawed, in my opinion, but because how the idea was integrated into the film is flawed. So I think the purpose of the D-Rex is pretty obvious. It's sort of a callback to Ian Malcolm's quote in the original Jurassic Park.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could.
InGen are experimenting for the very first time with hybridized dinosaurs in the wake of Jurassic World opening. And as InGen are wont to do, they're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. The D-Rex was the 26th version of this dinosaur, and Edwards has said he likes the idea that this one had sauropod DNA grafted into its genome. They're just experimenting. They're trying multiple combinations and seeing what pops out the other end. There's no way they expected or really wanted to create such a bizarre looking beast after all. Masrani may have liked the Indominus Rex, but the Indominus Rex looks like a dinosaur, albeit a hyper stylized one. The D-Rex though is something else entirely, and it's hard to see them ever exhibiting that in Jurassic World or any of the parks. Now, of course, the Jurassic World hybrids did kind of hit on the same narrative framing of standing on the shoulders of giants and screwing up. But the D-Rex has something that the others don't. Unlike the Indominus Rex and the Indoraptor, both of which seem malicious by nature and were framed entirely as antagonistic as a result, the D-Rex was meant to be a creature you felt sympathy for. InGen's genetic meddling hadn't only endangered the workers at the R&D facility, but it had created a creature that was suffering, burdened by excess flesh and trapped eternally in a sterile laboratory to be poked and prodded till it was saved by a heroic Snickers bar. And this isn't me headcanoning, this was the intended emotion. ILM's David Vickery said the following to Empire before the film released. Gareth wanted us to feel sorry for it as well as terrified, because its deformities have caused it some pain and there's an encumbrance to it. It's a bit like Sloth from the Goonies. Initially you're horrified by something, but in the end you empathise with it. I believe Jurassic World Rebirth's single biggest failure on a scripting level is that absolutely none of this comes through in the film. Did any of you at home empathise with the D-Rex, truthfully? And empathise with it because of how it was used in the film? If any of you are raising your hands right now, that's weird because I can't see you, but I have to imagine it wasn't many of you. There's only two D-Rex scenes in the film, the opening where we barely see it before it brutally slaughters the rotating man, and the end, where it's filmed absolutely spectacularly, but really does just lumber around trying to eat everybody. There is nothing in this film, nothing, that suggests it's a creature in pain or that we should feel sympathetic towards it. And the problem with that is it doesn't just undermine the D-Rex itself, but it weakens any thematic resonance the film was attempting with it. No longer is this about how InGen screwed around and created this poor suffering creature. It's just more running away from a big scary mutant dinosaur. It's a monster, not an animal, which is unfortunate because Rebirth generally does a very good job treating its animals as animals rather than monsters. It's actually one of the best films in the franchise at doing that until you get to the mutants. Jurassic World Rebirth has a lot of similarities with Jurassic Park 3. We've got the island setting, the survival theme, the stranded family, and the style of antagonistic dinosaur. The Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus is a classic design, beautifully realised, but if we're honest, it's not really thematically rich either. It's just a needlessly angry, giant theropod. It's not really an animal, it's a monster. It doesn't do anything natural, it just wants to eat people, that's it. It has no other function. And yet Jurassic Park 3 handles these same ideas better than Rebirth does. Not only does the Spinosaurus make multiple appearances throughout the film, thus establishing it as a credible threat, but the extended lab sequence and the discussions of InGen's list is already more than we got in Rebirth. And that's a film, by the way, that is nearly an hour shorter. So, how do you fix a problem like the D-Rex? Well, I've got some ideas. First things first, I would make some small tweaks to the opening scene, which I think is pretty great, so it's not a big change, but I would simply show a little bit less of the D-Rex initially. Have it occluded by more of the smoke, have it obscured by that crimson fog, maybe just show this misshapen large claw reaching out of the darkness before pulling the man back into the Umbra to be devoured. Rotate him along the way, obviously. He has to rotate. I'd also maybe throw in a little zoom onto a monitor or scattered notes with mentions of mutations or hybrids or anything to just hint that what we've just seen is something else altogether different. No big changes here though. Can't say that for the next bit. Big change here, scrap the Mutodons. Destroy them entirely. Regardless of how I feel about how well done their scene is and the design of the creature, the problem is, even more so than the D-Rex, they do not fit into the film whatsoever. They just kind of exist. These weird mutant creatures. There's no justification for their existing, they've got no personality beyond trying to eat people, there's nothing to them. They really feel shoved in to satisfy some decades-old whim more than any narrative or thematic justification. You can tell they were added very late in the game. Partly as a result of those Mutodons, Rebirth's third act is definitely its worst, and that's also in part due to the rushed pacing that feels more like it's jumping from set piece to set piece with very little time for character growth or lore building or, plot. I've seen a few people criticize Rebirth's opening act as being slow, but for me that's the best part of the entire film. It's this really well balanced mix of beautifully done action with the Mosasaurus and then the Mosasaurus and the Spinosaurs, and a good few quieter moments to help establish character. You might think that's dull, some of you, but this increasingly modern mindset of needing bombastic action every 5 seconds might make for good TikTok reels, but it doesn't make for cohesive or emotionally satisfying storytelling. This is maybe my most boomer opinion. Jurassic Park, though, understood this, fundamentally. The flea circus scene is my personal favourite scene in the entire film. Feel free to go back through my videos, you'll see me mention this many times. And it occurs smack bang in the middle of dinosaur-wrought chaos. It's just two people talking, that's all it is. It's Sattler and Hammond sitting down and having a chat. And they're exploring the themes the film is trying to work with, they're deepening their character arcs as a result, and they're making us care about them and their survival. It is superb writing, it really is, and Rebirth's third act is desperate for something like this to smooth the pacing and help re-establish plot, theme and character. The thing is, I don't think this is even difficult to fix. As I say, I would make a small change to the opening, and then I would cut one or both Mutodon scenes, the tunnels and the gas station, and give the extra runtime over to the InGen lab sequence, which is frankly almost obscenely short in this movie. It doesn't explore anything as it is. We don't learn anything about InGen or what they did on the island. It was the big moment to dive a little deeper into what's happened here and what the D-Rex is all about and why they were creating it and what it's gone through. And honestly, Rebirth just squanders the occasion entirely. A much extended sequence with the characters taking a breath, maybe using the lab as like an overnight camp, and then finding the D-Rex breakout area. A body or two, notes or flickering computer terminals detailing InGen's brutal experimentation, maybe a video log showcasing those earlier iterations of the D-Rex, growing in size and monstrosity and agony with each version until the final clip gives us a glimpse of the D-Rex. Play a recording of the beast breathing heavily, struggling, suffering, or being experimented on by InGen. Elicit that sympathy. Play a recording of the breakout for the group so they can see for the very first time what kind of beast is out there roaming the island, what threat is out there in the darkness. Elicit the fear. I'm not going to pretend this is a novel idea, by the way. It is pretty much standard sci-fi horror thriller action writing, and yet in my opinion this fairly simple tweak would have given the film and the D-Rex itself much more depth. The funny thing is, it does seem like the lab sequence was meant to be longer, or at least showcase a little bit more of InGen's experimentation. We got these new images very recently of the tiny incubation chamber used to breed the animals, including what looks to be the Neurognathus, the Titanosaurus, and this very grumpy looking little weirdo. We needed more of this kind of stuff in the film. As a small further change, I would also move the lab sequence earlier in the film between the second and third DNA samples, between the Titanosaurus and the Quetzalcoatlus, in order to A, shake up that slightly video gamey feeling the film has at that point in time, you know, where they're going from level to level to get this DNA, and also B, re-establish the presence of the D-Rex on the island. It really needed a third scene, disconnected from the other two, that would hint both towards its brutality and its pain, showcasing a little more but not all of the design. Let the protagonists know there's something out there, rather than it just appearing at the end. As it is, it takes about 2 hours off in the middle of the film, and you kind of forget about it. Some small tweaks to the final scene to maybe once again emphasize that slightly more sympathetic angle, that would have been appreciated too. I'm not saying it can't be a ferocious beast, by the way, but I feel like it should be a ferocious beast because it's lashing out, it's in pain, it doesn't understand the world, it isn't real, it isn't built for this world, and it's just lashing out at everything it can see. I really don't know why the third act of this film is as shallow as it is, and this fear of slowing down and just taking a breath is, for me, Rebirth's biggest fault. The first and second acts of this film are, in my opinion, pretty bloody fantastic. The Mosasaurus and Spinosaurus scenes are great, the Titanosaurus scene is one of my favourites in the entire franchise, and the T-Rex River Rapids scene is spectacular as well. But the third act is the big missed opportunity, and I hope that if we do get that, what seems an almost inevitable sequel, they go in with the bravery to believe their audience is intelligent enough to handle 10 minutes of lore, discovery, and humanity.